please? I'm so sorry. I don't know what else to do." Estelle Monroe looked up from her book to see a man in the aisle beside her seat, exhaustion carved into every line of his face. In his arms, a baby, no more than 8 months old, wailed inconsolably, her tiny face red and tear-streaked. The other passengers were staring now, some with sympathy, others with barely concealed irritation. The man's shoulders sagged under the weight of their judgment. "She won't stop," he whispered, his voice breaking. "I've tried everything. The bottle, the pacifier. I don't know what she needs." Estelle saw it then, the lost look in his eyes, the desperate exhaustion of someone drowning alone. "May I?" she asked softly, setting her book aside. He hesitated, then nodded, carefully transferring the crying infant into Estelle's waiting arms. The baby's cries didn't stop immediately, but Estelle began to sway gently, instinctively. And then, without thinking, she started to hum. An old lullaby her grandmother had sung to her decades ago when the world felt too big and scary. Slowly, miraculously, the crying softened. The baby's fists unclenched. Her sobs became hiccups, then gentle breaths. And the man beside her looked like he might cry himself. "How did you—" His voice was barely audible. Estelle smiled gently, still swaying. "Sometimes all they need is to feel safe, to know someone's there." His name was Garrett Ashford, and over the next hour, as the baby, whose name was Penelope, slept peacefully in Estelle's arms, he told her everything. His wife, Caroline, had died 11 months ago. A stroke, sudden and cruel, 3 months after Penelope was born. He'd been traveling for work, hadn't been there when it happened. The guilt was a weight he couldn't shake. "I'm a terrible father," he said quietly, staring at his sleeping daughter. "I don't know what I'm doing. I have nannies, caregivers, but she cries for me at night, and I don't know how to comfort her. I don't know how to be what Caroline was." Estelle's throat tightened. "You're here. You're trying. That's what matters." "Is it? Because most days I feel like I'm failing her, like I'm letting Caroline down." "Your daughter is loved," Estelle said firmly. "I can see it in the way you look at her. Love doesn't require perfection, Garrett. It just requires presence." He looked at her then, really looked at her, as if seeing her for the first time. "You're very kind. Do you have children?" The question landed softly, but it still hurt. "I did," Estelle said quietly. "A daughter, Emma. She would have been 32 this year." "Would have been?" "Car accident. 15 years ago. She was 17. Estelle's voice remained steady, though her heart trembled. "For a long time, I thought the grief would destroy me. But then I realized the love doesn't go away just because they do. It stays. It finds new ways to exist." Garrett's eyes glistened. "I am so sorry." "I am too. But I've learned that holding a child, comforting a child, any child, keeps a piece of that love alive, reminds me why it mattered in the first place." When the plane landed, Garrett wrote his number on a business card before Estelle could protest. "I don't know what you did, but you helped us both today. More than you know. If you're ever in the city, I'd like to thank you properly. Maybe coffee? Penelope would love to see you again." Estelle smiled, tucking the card into her purse, assuming she'd never use it. But 3 weeks later, when loneliness pressed too heavily on her small apartment walls, she found herself dialing the number. Their friendship grew slowly, naturally. Coffee became weekly park visits, which became casual dinners where Estelle helped soothe Penelope through teething and developmental leaps. She taught him the songs her grandmother had taught her, showed him how to read a baby's cues, the tired cry versus the hungry one, the subtle signs of overstimulation. "You're a natural," he told her one evening as he watched Estelle gently rock Penelope to sleep. I had practice once, Estelle said softly. It's nice to remember what that felt like. One night, as they sat on his penthouse balcony, Penelope asleep in her nursery, Garrett turned to her with an expression she couldn't quite read. I looked you up after we met. I know you think I'm just some businessman, but I needed to know who'd shown such kindness to complete strangers. Estelle stiffened slightly. And I learned you were a music teacher for 30 years, that you lost your husband 5 years after losing your daughter, that you retired early because the grief made teaching too hard. His voice was gentle. I learned you've been alone for a long time, just like me. Tears pricked Estelle's eyes. Why does any of that matter? Because I want you to know you're not just helping me with Penelope. You're reminding me what it means to let someone in again, to trust that not everything good ends in loss. She looked at him then, really looked at him, and saw not the billionaire the internet described, but a grieving widower learning to be a father, slowly stitching himself back together. I'm scared, she whispered, of caring too much, of losing again. Me too, but maybe that's exactly why we should try. 6 months later, Estelle sat in a courtroom, her hand clasped tightly in Garrett's. The judge smiled as she reviewed the paperwork before her. It's not often I see adoption petitions from individuals of your age, Miss Monroe, but given the relationship you've developed with Penelope and Mr. Ashford's enthusiastic support, I'm happy to grant guardianship papers that legally recognize you as a parental figure in her life. Estelle's tears fell freely. Garrett squeezed her hand. That evening, in the nursery painted soft yellow, Estelle held 2-year-old Penelope and sang the same lullaby she'd hummed on that plane. Penelope's tiny hand reached up, touching Estelle's cheek. Nana, she said clearly, the name she had chosen herself. Yes, sweetheart, I'm here. I'll always be here. Garrett stood in the doorway, watching them with an expression of profound gratitude and something deeper, something that looked like healing. Thank you, he said softly, for getting on that plane, for seeing us when we were invisible, for teaching me that family isn't just who we lose, it's also who we find. Estelle looked at him then, down at the child in her arms, not her daughter, but a daughter nonetheless, not a replacement, but a continuation, a new chapter written in the margins of grief, proving that love doesn't end when loss arrives. It simply transforms, finding new hearts to fill, new hands to hold. Sometimes, Estelle said, her voice thick with emotion, the greatest gifts come from the smallest acts of kindness, from choosing compassion when it would be easier to look away. Penelope yarned, her eyes fluttering closed. Safe, loved, home. And in that moment, 3 broken hearts, bound together by chance and choice, beat as one family. Because sometimes, at 30,000 feet or on solid ground, all any of us really needs is someone to sing us through the storm, someone to remind us we're not alone, someone brave enough to love again despite every reason not to. Good night, little one. You are so deeply loved. And for the first time in 15 years, those words didn't break her heart. They healed it. If you enjoyed this story, please like, share, subscribe, and comment.